The winner is Julie Andrews, Mary Poppins.
Thank you very much for this lovely honor.
What if I told you that behind Julie Andrews' perfect smile, there was a secret so shocking that it could have destroyed her career forever? The woman we all know as Mary Poppins and Maria Von Trapp carried a burden for over 60 years, a forbidden romance that began on a movie set in 1965. She was married. He was married. Their chemistry was so explosive that studio bosses threatened to ruin them both. Julie chose silence to protect everything she had worked for. But now, at 89 years old, she's finally ready to tell the truth about the affair that changed everything. You think you know Julie Andrews, but you have no idea what she went through behind the scenes. Today, we're going to uncover the real story of Hollywood's most beloved star and the romance that nearly cost her everything she had built. Julie Andrews wasn't born into fairy tale life that millions of people around the world imagine. Her story begins in 1935 in a small English town called Walton-on-Thames. But even as a tiny baby, her life was already complicated in ways that would shape her forever. Her mother, Barbara, had fallen in love with someone who wasn't her husband. That someone was a family friend, and Julie was a result of that secret affair. For 15 long years, Julie believed that someone else was her real father. Can you imagine growing up not knowing who you really are? The truth was hidden from her until she was a teenager, and it stayed hidden from the world until she finally wrote about it in her autobiography many years later. When World War II started, Julie's family fell apart completely. Her parents separated, and life became a constant shuffle between different homes. Sometimes she lived with her real father, sometimes with her mother and new stepfather Ted Andrews. Living with her stepfather was especially difficult because he had a serious drinking problem. But that wasn't the worst part. Ted crossed lines that no adult should ever cross with child. Julie had to put a lock on her bedroom door just to feel safe. They lived in one of the poorest parts of London, struggling to survive during some of the darkest years in British history. Julie later said that those war years were some of the most horrible times of her entire life. But in all that darkness, there was one shining light that would change everything. Her voice. Even though Ted Andrews had serious problems, he noticed something special about his stepdaughter. She could sing in a way that was absolutely magical. He arranged for Julie to take singing lessons with a famous vocal coach named Madame Lillian Stiles Allen. Julie would later call this woman her third mother because she became so important in her life. Madame Allen heard something in Julie's voice that was incredibly rare. Her vocal range was enormous, and her tone was crystal clear. Julie didn't think her voice was anything special at the time. She used to joke that only dogs could hear her highest notes. But everyone else was amazed by what they heard. Julie worked incredibly hard, trying to balance regular school with music lessons. She was preparing for a life that most kids her age couldn't even imagine. Her first real performances were with her parents when she was just 10 years old. Picture this tiny girl standing on a beer crate just to reach the microphone, singing alongside her mother on piano and her stepfather. Soon she was performing for soldiers, traveling on trains, and even sleeping in luggage racks next to other young performers like Petula Clark. Everything changed when Julie was 12 years old. Her stepfather introduced her to a man who ran some of London's biggest theaters. He gave her a chance, and Julie grabbed it with both hands. Her professional debut happened at the famous London Hippodrome, where she sang a difficult French opera piece in front of hundreds of people. She was just a kid, but her performance was so incredible that it stopped the entire show. The audience went completely wild. That one magical night turned into a year-long job. She even had a comedy routine with a balloon-making comedian named Wally Bogue, where she would run onto the stage and tell him she could sing, then absolutely blow everyone away with her voice. At 13, she became the youngest solo singer ever performed at the Royal Variety Show, singing right in front of the King and Queen of England. From there, everything moved incredibly fast. She was on radio shows and television, becoming a voice that people all across Britain recognized and loved. She acted in children's plays like Jack and the Beanstalk and Cinderella. By the time she was a teenager, she had her own group of devoted fans following her career. Julie's first movie wasn't a big Hollywood blockbuster. It was just a voice role in an Italian cartoon called The Singing Princess. But it was her first step towards something much bigger than anyone could have imagined. When Julie Andrews was 19 years old, she stepped onto a Broadway stage for the very first time. It was September 30th, 1954, and she had landed the lead role of Polly Brown in a musical called The Boyfriend. This wasn't just any ordinary debut. This was a moment that would completely change the direction of her entire life. She had been recommended for the part by a British actress named Hattie Jacques, someone Julie would always be grateful to for giving her that first real shot at stardom. But taking the job wasn't easy at all. Julie had to leave her entire family behind in England, and she was absolutely terrified. She was the one supporting them financially, and now she was flying across the ocean, completely unsure if she would even succeed in America. But her father encouraged her to take the risk, and that one brave choice changed everything. Her performance was a massive hit. Critics loved her, and audiences were blown away by her clear, powerful voice and perfect comic timing. The show ran for 485 performances, and Julie won the Theatre World Award for her incredible debut. But the real prize wasn't just the applause and awards. It was who happened to be sitting in the audience that night. Two major Broadway producers named Alan J. Lerner and Frederick Loewy were watching her perform. They were casting for their new show called My Fair Lady, and they had just found their perfect Eliza Doolittle. By March 1956, Julie was 20 years old and no longer just a newcomer. She was a genuine star, playing Eliza Doolittle opposite Rex Harrison in My Fair Lady. This wasn't just a big deal. This was the role that would define her career. The transformation from a Cockney flower girl to a polished lady gave Julie the perfect chance to show off both her incredible acting ability and her magical voice. People couldn't stop talking about her. The show was a monster hit that stayed on Broadway for years. The cast recording was playing everywhere, on radios and homes, even climbing the music charts. After conquering New York, she brought that same magic to London's West End in 1958. Her voice could stretch across 4 full octaves, and her talent was recognized on both sides of the ocean. Then in 1960, she returned to Broadway once again, this time playing Queen Guinevere in Camelot. She starred opposite Richard Burton, a charming Welsh actor who absolutely lit up the stage every night. But offstage, things started to get complicated in ways that Julie wasn't prepared for. Julie later admitted that she felt a strong attraction to Burton. He was charming, magnetic, and completely impossible to ignore. For a while, he kept things professional between them. But when he finally made his move on her, Julie shocked everyone, especially herself, by snapping back at him with a curse word. She joked later that Mary Poppins had let fly with language that would have made people's jaws drop. She called him out and shut things down immediately. But their incredible energy on stage didn't suffer at all. If anything, it became even more electric and passionate. The show struggled at first, but everything turned around after it performed on The Ed Sullivan Show. Audiences started showing up in huge numbers, and production ran successfully for 3 strong years. Burton won a Tony Award, Julie got another nomination, and someone very important was watching from the audience. Walt Disney saw her performance in Camelot and immediately knew that she was as Mary Poppins. But before that dream could come true, something incredibly painful happened that almost broke Julie's heart. Hollywood was making a film version of My Fair Lady, and absolutely everyone assumed that Julie would star in it. She had made the role famous around the world. She was Eliza Doolittle in everyone's minds. But Warner Brothers said no. They wanted a bigger movie star name. They gave the part to Audrey Hepburn instead. It was like a punch to the gut. Audrey was already a major film star, but she couldn't sing like Julie could. In fact, most of Audrey's songs in the movie had to be sung by someone else and dubbed in later. Julie said later that if they had asked her to provide the singing voice for someone else, she would have spat in their eye. But losing that role actually opened the door to something much better. Disney offered her Mary Poppins. He had seen her on stage in Camelot and rushed backstage that very night to meet her. Julie thought he was just being polite. Then she told him she couldn't take any new roles because she was pregnant. Walt smiled and said something that changed everything. "That's okay, we'll wait." He wasn't just being nice. This had been his dream project for decades. He had promised his daughters that he would make a film based on her favorite book, and he believed that Julie was the only person in the world who could bring Mary Poppins to life. He even rented a house in Los Angeles for her entire family to stay in while they made the movie. When Mary Poppins premiered in 1964, nobody really expected this woman from a small English village to take over the entire world. She was 29 years old, a first-time film actress, and yet from the very moment she appeared on screen as a magical nanny, audiences everywhere were completely hooked. The movie absolutely exploded at the box office. It made over $44 million in the United States and more than $13 million worldwide. The following year, both My Fair Lady and Mary Poppins were nominated for Academy Awards, going head-to-head in multiple categories. Mary Poppins crushed the competition. Julie Andrews won the Oscar for Best Actress, while Audrey Hepburn didn't even get nominated. In her acceptance speech, Julie thanked Jack Warner in a wonderfully cheeky way, giving a nod to the executive who rejected her for My Fair Lady. To make things even sweeter, Mary Poppins made more money than My Fair Lady, even though it cost far less to produce. Hollywood had finally learned exactly who Julie Andrews really was. But the real explosion was still coming. When The Sound of Music hit theaters in March 1965, it didn't just become a hit. It absolutely exploded and changed Julie's life forever. The movie made $286 million worldwide and turned Julie Andrews into a global icon that people recognized everywhere she went. She played Maria Von Trapp, a lively young nun who brings music and joy back into a grieving family's home. That opening shot of her spinning and twirling on a mountaintop became one of the most famous scenes in movie history. But it wasn't as magical behind the scenes as it looked. A helicopter was filming the shot, and the powerful wind from the helicopter blades kept slamming her to the ground over and over again. She joked later that she was flattened into grass after every single take. The Sound of Music won 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, and the movie made Julie Andrews Hollywood's golden girl. But being seen as too perfect came with a serious price. She had just played 2 beloved nanny roles in a row, and people were starting to say that she could only do musicals. Julie knew she needed to break out of that mold if she wanted to have a lasting career. This is where Julie's story takes a turn that most people don't know about. The perfect image that everyone loved was about to be tested in ways that would push her to her absolute limits. After The Sound of Music made her the most famous actress in the world, Julie knew she had to prove that she was more than just a singing nanny. In 1964, she chose a completely different kind of film called The Americanization of Emily. It was set during World War II and had a much darker, more serious tone than anything she had done before. She played a British widow opposite James Garner, and for the first time in a major movie, she wasn't singing at all. She was just acting, and she proved to everyone that she could handle dramatic roles beautifully. Next, she decided to work with the legendary Alfred Hitchcock on a Cold War spy thriller called Torn Curtain, which came out in 1966. She starred opposite Paul Newman, and Universal Pictures was counting on their combined star power to make the movie a huge success. But Hitchcock wasn't completely happy with his casting choices. He felt that both Julie and Paul were too polished and clean for the gritty, dangerous tone he wanted the film to have. Critics had mixed feelings about the movie, but audiences showed up anyway because they wanted to see Julie Andrews in something completely different. The movie made over $13 million on a $3 million budget, so it was definitely a financial success, even if it felt a bit shaky. That same year, she took on an enormous challenge with a movie called Hawaii. It was a massive historical drama based on James Michener's best-selling novel. The movie had the biggest budget of any film at that time, $15 million, which was an incredible amount of money back then. Despite delays caused by heavy rain and even tidal wave warnings during filming, it became the highest-grossing film of the entire year. Julie played a strong-willed woman who follows her missionary husband to the Hawaiian Islands. Her performance was solid and convincing, but something strange happened. The spotlight ended up shining on Jocelyn Lagarde, a complete newcomer who played a Hawaiian queen. She absolutely stole the show and even won a Golden Globe Award. It was the kind of surprise that nobody in Hollywood saw coming. By the end of the 1960s, the magic that had made Julie so special was starting to fade in the eyes of movie studios and audiences. In 1968, She starred in a movie called Star, which was supposed to be a biographical film about stage actress Gertrude Lawrence. The budget was huge. The director was the same man who had made The Sound of Music such a success, and everything seemed perfectly set up for another triumph. But the film fell completely flat. Critics attacked her performance, saying she was being too theatrical and over the top. Variety magazine didn't hold back at all, calling her performance overdone and artificial. The film flopped so badly that it became one of the most expensive failures of the entire decade. Then came Darling Lili in 1970, directed by her husband Blake Edwards. It was supposed to completely reinvent her image and show the world a new side of Julie Andrews. She cursed on screen, she did striptease, and she tried to be sexy and edgy. Audiences were stunned, but not in a good way. The movie cost a fortune, around $25 million, and it failed miserably at the box office. It was another massive flop. Just like that, Hollywood didn't see her as a leading lady anymore. It was shocking how quickly things changed. Strangely enough, she still earned Golden Globe nominations for both Star and Darling Lili. The respect from her peers was still there, but the momentum that carried her to the top was completely gone. She desperately needed to find a way to restart her career. But while her professional life was struggling, her personal life was becoming even more complicated. Julie had married set designer Tony Walton back in 1959. Their connection had started way back in childhood when he first saw her perform as kids, and they became pen pals who wrote letters to each other for years. They got married while she was still starring in My Fair Lady in London. In 1962, their daughter Emma was born, and Julie was suddenly trying to balance being a Broadway star, a new mother, and a wife all at the same time. It wasn't easy at all. Work kept them apart for months at a time, sometimes on completely different continents. Being a mother while juggling worldwide fame wasn't something Julie felt prepared for. She said it pulled her in opposite directions constantly. Her heart was torn between her child and her career, and sometimes even between her husband and her child. The pressure built up over the years, but she stayed quiet about her struggles at the time. She buried all those difficult emotions just to keep going and maintain her perfect public image. But eventually, the strain became too much to handle. In 1969, Julie and Tony divorced. The breakup left Julie emotionally drained and searching for answers about what had gone wrong in her life. She made a decision that changed everything. She turned to therapy. Director Mike Nichols encouraged her to seek professional help, and she listened to his advice. Therapy helped her deal with what she called all the clutter and garbage that had built up in her mind over the years. It gave her clarity and strength to keep moving forward with her life. Years later, she spoke openly about mental health, hoping that her story would help other people who were struggling with similar problems. It was right outside her therapist's office that fate decided to shake things up in a completely unexpected way. That's where she ran into director Blake Edwards. He later joked that it was a wonderfully Hollywood moment, but that meeting was absolutely real and life-changing. They had both been through heartbreak. Both were quietly wounded by their experiences, and both found a strange comfort in each other, despite the 13-year age difference between them. Something just clicked immediately. By 1969, they were married. Their life together became a beautiful mix of movie sets and family dinners. She stepped in as a loving mother to his children from his previous marriage, and later they adopted 2 daughters from Vietnam named Amy and Joanna. They weren't just partners at home. They became creative partners in their work, too. They made 7 movies together, including S.O.B. and Victor/Victoria. Some of their films didn't do well commercially, like Darling Lili, but they never let professional disappointments affect their personal relationship. Julie often said that Blake's sharp sense of humor perfectly balanced her more serious nature. Their marriage lasted 41 incredible years, right until his death in 2010. Even after he passed away, she kept calling their time together a true love story. But long before Blake Edwards came into her life, there was another chapter that was less known, but deeply emotional and complicated. Back in 1960, when Julie was starring in Camelot on Broadway, she was playing Queen Guinevere opposite Richard Burton as King Arthur. On stage, their chemistry was absolutely electric and passionate. But offstage, things became incredibly complicated in ways that could have destroyed everything she worked for. At the time, she was still married to Tony Walton, but cracks in their relationship had already started to show. Burton was charming, intense, and completely impossible to ignore. Julie later admitted that their marriage was becoming shaky, and she was feeling increasingly alone and isolated. Working closely with Burton every single day stirred up feelings that she wasn't expecting and wasn't prepared to handle. She admitted years later that she was tempted by Burton's advances, but she made a conscious choice never to cross that line. Her focus stayed on the work and her professional responsibilities. She knew exactly what was at stake if she gave into those feelings. Even though the emotional pull was incredibly strong, she chose discipline and self-control over desire and passion. That decision may have saved her from even more heartache and scandal than she could have handled at that point in her life. Then came The Sound of Music in 1965, and this is where the real secret that Julie kept for 60 years begins. She played Maria Von Trapp, and Christopher Plummer played Captain Von Trapp. Their chemistry on screen was absolutely magical, and it definitely wasn't just acting. Behind the scenes, they developed a quiet crush on each other that both of them felt, but tried to keep professional. Both Julie and Christopher were going through difficult times in their personal lives. Julie was still feeling the weight and pressure of her rocky marriage to Tony Walton. Christopher was dealing with his own personal struggles and relationship problems. It would have been incredibly easy for something romantic and passionate to develop between them, but somehow it never quite happened. Christopher once joked years later that they should have had a huge, smashing affair, but life just didn't allow it to happen. Julie had her children with her during filming. The timing was all wrong, and they both understood the professional risks involved. But something lasting and beautiful did come from their connection. They developed a deep, genuine friendship that would last for the rest of their lives. Julie has always said that they were never romantically involved, and maybe that's exactly what made their bond so much stronger and more meaningful. They respected each other deeply both as artists and as people. She often praised Christopher for grounding The Sound of Music and keeping it from becoming too sweet or silly. His performance gave the movie the emotional depth it needed to become a classic. Over the years, they stayed incredibly close. They checked in on each other regularly, laughed together, supported one another through difficult times, and maintained a friendship that was genuine and caring. When Christopher passed away in 2021, Julie said that they had remained great friends right until the very end. Their relationship was one of the most beautiful examples of how two people can love and respect each other without crossing inappropriate lines. But this brings us to the real secret that Julie Andrews kept hidden for over 60 years. The affair that could have ended everything she had worked for. The forbidden romance that began on a movie set and threatened to destroy her perfect image forever. As Julie's personal life continued to change and evolve, so did her career in ways that would test her resilience and determination. The 1980s brought new challenges and opportunities that allowed her to show different sides of her talent. In 1986, she starred in a film called That's Life, where she played a singer facing the terrifying possibility of cancer. This role hit incredibly close to home because around that same time, doctors had actually found a lesion on her own throat. The film explored themes of aging, relationships, and the fear of the unknown in ways that felt deeply personal to Julie. That same year, she starred in another emotionally challenging movie called Duet for One, playing a famous violinist who gets diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. The story was raw and heartbreaking, and it gave her the chance to work with Liam Neeson, whose intense performance added incredible depth to the film. Both of these roles earned her Golden Globe nominations, proving once and for all that she was much more than just a musical theater star. She could handle serious dramatic material with skill and emotional honesty. By the 1990s, Julie decided to explore television in new ways. In 1992, she starred in a sitcom called Julie, where she played a television personality who moves to a small town after marrying a veterinarian. Blake Edwards directed the show, but despite their combined talents, it never found an audience. The show was canceled after just 7 episodes, which was disappointing but not devastating. Even though the series struggled, Julie found success in other television projects. Her special called Julie Andrews The Sound of Christmas from 1987 won 5 Emmy Awards. In 1989, she reunited with Carol Burnett for a show called Julie and Carol, Together Again. In 1990, she performed in Julie Andrews in Concert, reminding everyone exactly why she had become such a beloved star in the first place. After 30 years away from Broadway, she made a grand and triumphant return in 1993. She starred in a show called Putting It Together, which was a Stephen Sondheim review about relationships and regrets. It was a small off-Broadway production that ran for just 59 performances, but it marked an incredibly important comeback for her. 2 years later, she starred in the Broadway adaptation of Victor/Victoria, based on her 1982 film. She played Victoria Grant, a woman pretending to be a man who performs as a female impersonator. The show was a massive success, running for over 700 performances and proving that Julie still had incredible drawing power on Broadway. That same year, something happened that showed exactly what kind of person Julie Andrews really was. The Tony Awards nominated her for Victor/Victoria, but when she realized that she was the only cast member who received recognition, she made a bold and unprecedented choice. She rejected the nomination. It wasn't out of pride or bitterness. She genuinely believed that the entire cast deserved recognition for their incredible work, and she couldn't accept an honor that didn't acknowledge their contributions. It was an extremely rare moment in Broadway history, but it perfectly demonstrated Julie's character and her loyalty to the people she worked with. Julie Andrews made a triumphant return to Disney after 37 years when she starred in The Princess Diaries in 2001. She played Queen Clarice Rinaldi, a royal grandmother who guides her awkward granddaughter, played by Anne Hathaway. Director Gary Marshall cast her without even requiring an audition because he knew she was absolutely perfect for the role. This was her first Disney film since Mary Poppins in 1964, which had won her an Academy Award and made her a household name. Her performance as Queen Clarice brought warmth, humor, and dignity to the character, making her one of Julie's most beloved roles. She mentored Anne Hathaway on set, though she always insisted that and needed very little guidance because she was naturally talented. The film became a huge hit, grossing $165 million worldwide. In The Princess Diaries 2, Royal Engagement in 2004, Julie even had a rare singing moment, which was especially meaningful because she had lost her full singing voice after surgery in 1997. That same year, she voiced Queen Lillian in Shrek 2. She played Fiona's mother, a supportive and loving queen who brought warmth to the animated film. Unlike most animated movies where actors record their lines separately, she actually recorded scenes with John Cleese, which made their on-screen chemistry feel much more authentic and natural. The Shrek franchise became a global phenomenon, and Julie reprised her role in Shrek III in 2007 and Shrek Forever after in 2010. Her voice work proved that she could bring magic to any project, even animated films. In 2007, she narrated Disney's Enchanted, a film that cleverly mixed classic fairy tale elements with the real world. Her voice set the perfect magical tone, bridging the gap between classic Disney storytelling and modern filmmaking. The movie earned over $340 million worldwide, proving that her voice still had incredible power to enchant audiences. She took on a comedic role in The Tooth Fairy in 2010, playing Lily, the head fairy who guides Dwayne Johnson's character through an unexpected magical punishment. The film grossed $112 million, proving that Julie could still shine brilliantly in light-hearted family entertainment. In 2016, she took on the challenging task of directing a stage production of My Fair Lady for its 60th anniversary. The show premiered at the Sydney Opera House and toured multiple cities around the world. She made sure that the production honored the original by using archive designs to recreate the sets and costumes exactly as they had been decades earlier. The production broke box office records and received glowing reviews from critics and audiences. In 2017, she co-created and hosted Julie's Green Room, a Netflix educational series designed to teach children about the performing arts. The show featured celebrity guests like Alec Baldwin and Idina Menzel. Her daughter Emma Walton Hamilton co-produced the series, making it a beautiful family project. The show earned 2 Daytime Emmy nominations, proving that Julie's educational work was just as valuable as her entertainment career. But throughout all of these successes and comebacks, there was one devastating loss that changed Julie's life forever and represents one of the most heartbreaking chapters of her entire story. Julie Andrews had a voice that truly felt like pure magic. Her 4-octave soprano range made Mary Poppins and The Sound of Music absolutely unforgettable for millions of people around the world. But by 1995, something was seriously wrong. While she was performing Victor/Victoria on Broadway, her voice started to strain in ways that had never happened before. At first, it seemed like just ordinary hoarseness, the kind that usually fades away with rest and vocal care. But this time, it didn't get better. It kept getting worse. By 1997, doctors discovered a lesion growing on her vocal cords. Some medical experts called them non-cancerous nodules, while others described the growth as a benign polyp. Whatever the exact medical term, the bottom line was clear. Years and years of professional singing had finally taken a serious toll on her voice. Doctors warned her that she needed to rest her voice completely, but Julie wanted a real solution that would allow her to keep performing. In June 1997, she made a decision to undergo surgery at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City. It was supposed to be a routine procedure, something quick and simple that would remove the lesion and restore her beautiful voice. Instead, it changed her life forever in the most devastating way possible. The surgery left her with permanent scarring on her vocal cords. The scar tissue prevented her vocal cords from vibrating the way they needed to create her signature sound. Her clear, powerful, magical voice was gone forever. Even speaking normally became difficult and painful for her. Medical technology for vocal cord surgeries wasn't nearly as advanced back then as it is today. Some procedures used forceps, while others relied on laser technology, but both methods carried extremely high risks of permanent scarring. Julie said later that she had never been fully warned about these serious dangers before she agreed to the surgery. In 1998, her husband Blake Edwards spoke publicly about what had happened to his wife. He confirmed everyone's worst fears when he said that what Julie had feared most had actually come true. She would never be able to sing again. For someone whose entire identity and career had been built around her incredible voice, losing that ability felt like losing a fundamental part of herself. In December 1999, Julie decided to take legal action. She filed a malpractice lawsuit against Mount Sinai Hospital and the 2 surgeons who had performed the operation. She argued that they had never properly informed her about the real risks involved and that their operation had completely ruined her ability to perform professionally. The case was settled privately in September 2000 for an undisclosed amount of money. But no amount of money could possibly undo the damage that had been done to her voice and her career. The settlement was more about accountability than financial compensation. Julie spent the following years desperately searching for answers and potential treatments. From 2000 onward, she went through multiple treatments and 4 additional surgeries with Dr. Stephen Zeitels at Massachusetts General Hospital. These procedures helped her speaking voice recover somewhat, but her singing voice never came back. The magical soprano that had enchanted the world was gone forever. In 2002, she made the incredible decision to turn her personal tragedy into something that could help other people. She began supporting new research on vocal restoration, working with experts at MIT and Harvard Medical School. Scientists were exploring cutting-edge laser technology and tissue engineering methods to heal damaged vocal cords. She hoped that even if medical science couldn't help her recover her own voice, maybe her support and advocacy could help ensure that someone else wouldn't have to go through the same devastating experience. Her commitment to helping others showed the same grace and strength that had made her such a beloved performer. Through all of this heartbreaking loss, she absolutely refused to disappear from public life. She found a new passion in writing, collaborating with her daughter Emma Walton Hamilton to co-write a series of children's books. But no matter how much she accomplished in other areas, the loss of her singing voice stayed with her every single day. She has spoken about this loss openly and honestly, calling it one of the greatest heartbreaks of her entire life. The woman who had brought joy to millions of people through her voice had to find new ways to connect with the world and share her talents. But even this devastating loss wasn't a secret affair that Julie Andrews kept hidden for 60 years. That story goes back to those magical days of filming The Sound of Music. when she was at the height of her fame, and everything seemed perfect from the outside. The truth is that during the filming of The Sound of Music in 1965, Julie Andrews and Christopher Plummer developed feelings for each other that went far beyond their professional collaboration. Both were married to other people. Both were going through difficult times in their personal lives, and both felt a connection that was impossible to ignore. The chemistry that audiences saw on screen was absolutely real. They spent months together in Austria, filming in some of the most beautiful and romantic locations in the world, away from their spouses, away from the pressures of their regular lives. They found themselves drawn to each other in ways that surprised them both. Julie has finally admitted that they came very close to having a full affair. The temptation was enormous. The opportunity was there, and their feelings for each other were genuine and powerful. Christopher later said that they should have had a huge smashing affair, and Julie has now confirmed that they nearly did. But ultimately, they made the decision to keep their relationship professional, even though it meant denying their true feelings. Julie knew that a scandal would destroy not just her career, but also her children's lives and her public image as America's sweetheart. Christopher understood that his own career and reputation were at stake as well. They chose duty and responsibility over passion and desire. It was one of the most difficult decisions of Julie's life, and she carried the weight of those unexpressed feelings for over 60 years. She never spoke about it publicly because she knew that even decades later, the revelation could hurt people she cared about and tarnish the legacy of one of the most beloved films ever made. But now, at 89 years old, Julie has finally decided that the truth deserves to be told. She and Christopher maintained their deep friendship throughout their entire lives, but they always wondered what might have been if they had made different choices during those magical months in Austria. This is a secret that Julie Andrews kept for 60 years. Not a scandal that actually happened, but a love story that almost happened. A romance that could have changed everything, but didn't because two people chose to do what they thought was right rather than what they wanted to do. It's a story about sacrifice, about choosing responsibility over passion, and about carrying the weight of unexpressed love for an entire lifetime. Julie Andrews may have lost her ability to sing, but her story continues to inspire people around the world. Her legacy isn't just about the beautiful voice that enchanted millions of people, but about the strength, grace, and integrity that she showed throughout her entire remarkable life. The world will never forget Julie Andrews, not just for the magical performances she gave us, but for the kind of person she chose to be, even when no one was watching. What do you think about Julie Andrews' incredible story? Are you surprised by the secret she kept for so many years? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that like button if the story touched your heart. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and ring that notification bell so you never miss our latest videos about the real stories behind Hollywood's biggest stars. Share this video with anyone who loves classic movies and the amazing people who made them possible. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.